Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shamika. I serve as the Associate Director of the James Beard Foundation in our Community Department. I'm excited to welcome you to today's Queer All Year webinar series in collaboration with the Queer Food Foundation. Thank you for taking your time to join us this afternoon, wherever you are. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the James Beard Foundation before we get started. The James Beard Foundation, or JBF, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to celebrate, support, and elevate the people behind America's food culture and champion a standard of good food anchored in talent, equity, and sustainability. If you're interested in learning more about our JBF programs, our events, and initiatives, please go to our website, jamesbeard.org, or visit platform by jbf.org. And we're also on social media at Beard Foundation. This month's webinar, we're featuring people behind my favorite part of the meal or on the menu, and that's sweets and savory desserts, with this webinar called Queer Pastry Chefs. Today's webinar will be recorded, and you'll have the opportunity to go back and listen to it on JBF's website on our virtual education library, or you can find us also on YouTube on the JBF page. As we get started, I'd like to kick things off first to Sunny Levine, the chair of the board of the Queer Food Foundation.
Thank you so much, Shamika. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sunny Levine. I'm the chair of the board of directors here at the Queer Food Foundation. Our 501c3 nonprofit organization has been around since 2020, and we serve as a platform to support, protect, as well as uplift intersectional queer folks in food and beverage spaces. And we've been privileged to partner with the James Beard Foundation on the Queer All Year panel series for several years now. I'm also thrilled to be introducing our moderator today, Vanessa Parish. Vanessa is our executive director, as well as a co-founder of the Queer Food Foundation. She's also a Black, Indigenous, lesbian chef, the former host of BuzzFeed Tasties Tasting Our Roots. She has worked in pastry fine dining for over a decade, and Vanessa has continued to collaborate throughout her career with organizations like Resi, the Food Network, NBC, BET, Airbnb, Google, Access Hollywood, Instagram, and Blavity platforms. She has founded several mutual aid programs, including Brown Books for Brown Kids and Tasty Tutelage. Vanessa has also been a contestant on Chopped Sweets. She is a Savage X Fenty 2022 Changemaker, Nissan's Partner for Progress, and is an Eating Well magazine correspondent. Vanessa is an advocate for mental health and disability rights, justice reform, and championing queer Black girl magic, and one of the most inspiring pastry chefs I know. Vanessa, over to you.
Thank you, Sunny. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited for this conversation. I have been waiting for this day for a very long time. So thank you so much to Sunny. Thank you for joining our panel. And a special thank you to the James Beard Foundation for collaborating with us, and also to our amazing sponsor, Bento Box. In the meantime, folks, please put in the chat box where you're coming from, how you're related to the food industry, and we're going to have a Q&A moment later on in the discussion. So if you want to put your questions in that chat box, we'll get to them as soon as we have our Q&A moment. I am thrilled to introduce our three panelists today. Nima, and CEO of Cake Life Bake Shop. He's a proud uncle, immigrant, and trans man with over 25 years of food industry experience. He serves as board chair of the Sustainable Business Network of the Greater Philadelphia, and in his spare time enjoys swimming, ceramics, Persian cooking, yum, and other people's dogs. Next, we have Brownen Wyatt, a pastry chef with nearly 2 decades of experience in restaurants across America, including New Orleans, Baltimore, San Francisco, and Portland, Maine. In 2020, Brownen established Bayou Saint Cake, a boutique cake studio specializing in imaginative layered cakes featuring intensely seasonal Southern produce. Wyatt lives in a century-old shotgun house in New Orleans with her wife, where her hobbies include gardening, painting, and writing. And last but not least, we have Robert Bowden. Stands out as an acclaimed chocolatier and the visionary behind CocoaViviere chocolates. Renowned for crafting bespoke corporate chocolate gifts, he was honored in 2017 as a Black Enterprise Modern Man of Distinction. Alongside leading, Robert actively contributes as a JBF Foundation advisor, a two-time judge of the International Chocolate Awards, and the former communications chair of the Heirloom Cacao Preservation Initiative. Described as a seeker of passions when not spreading joy through chocolate, Robert indulges in his two beloved pastimes, horses and travel. I love how we all have so many distinct passions and hobbies. That is my favorite part. So thank you guys for coming. We're gonna do like a quick opening round to hear from each of you. So please share where in the world we're finding you today and what is catching your eye this week.
Shall I start?
Yes, go for it.
I'm Bronwyn. I'm so sorry. Could I have you repeat the question?
Sure. Where in the world are you today? What's catching your eye this week?
I am in New Orleans, and right now we're in the thick of strawberry season, so I'm really enjoying just eating as many strawberries as I can.
And Nima?
Sure, I'm over in Philadelphia, and it's ramp season out here, so I'm dreaming of alums this week. And yeah, it's also 420 this weekend, which at our shop is a big deal. And so I'm excited about our specials this weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody else's out there on Instagram.
Nice. I am in an airport at the moment, headed to judge a chocolate contest this week. That is what I
What
have.
fabulous airport are you in?
I have just landed in Alabama, speaking of Southern Boy. I am judging the family counseling world of chocolate. They're doing a kind of a death by chocolate tournament, and I'll be judging tomorrow night. So tonight I'm talking to you guys, and tomorrow I'm tasting pastries all afternoon.
I'm very jealous about that, by the way. Okay, so we're gonna do a few questions and get into some fun conversation. I really want to pick your brains as much as possible, so please don't be shy. Can you share, each of you share a little bit about your career trajectories and what led you to where you are today? I can go in a circle if it's easier. We can do like Bronwyn, Nima, Robert.
Something I've been thinking a lot about lately, because I think like a lot of chefs, I didn't necessarily make a conscious decision to join the restaurant industry. I was in my 20s. It was roughly around the recession of 2008, and I needed work, and restaurant work is always available. So I found myself cooking from there. I started as a prep cook and worked myself up to being a pastry chef. Yeah, I found so much joy in this industry, and I'm really glad to be here. But I think that one of the most interesting things about my career trajectory is just how much of it has been through like luck and chance and just being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, for me, I found that I had a very circuitous route. So I was one of those weird kids that graduated early, and it was like an immigrant dream for my parents. They were like, like, that's awesome. How much other academic stuff do you want to do? And I was like, none, actually. So I did a lot of volunteering for a while, and I was trying to sort of figure out my path. And I ended up going to culinary school during that time. So I was a teenager still. And I worked illegally out of my house, as one does, like catering, and I worked for a few restaurants and that kind of stuff. And eventually my friends were all going to college, and I was like, I guess I should probably do that. And I sort of had a more conventional path, got my degree and started working in nonprofit arts publishing. And I found I was having more fulfillment cooking for my colleagues than doing the actual work that we were doing. And I was like, it's time to come back to culinary. But I was like, I want to expand my skill set. And by then I had sort of worked as an editor for a few years, and I was like really honing my type A personality traits. And I was like, maybe pastry is more what I want to do. And so, ended up getting into it that way and loved it. And I did find it was much more kind of suited to the adult I had sort of was starting to become, at least.
My trajectory was a little awkward, except my very first job, I managed a restaurant. My very first job, I went to apply to be a waiter because I was a theater major in college, and I thought that's what you do. You become a waiter. And so I didn't get hired as a waiter. I was a terrible waiter, but they brought me back as a manager. And I was like, maybe I can do this. I did that for a while, but my trajectory was actually horses. I was a horse trainer at my dad's, and then like kind of a family friend as well professionally. After college, I went to the University of Alabama, so roll tide. I went to Alabama, and after college, I decided that I wanted to turn pro as a horse trainer. So I did that for the next 10, 15 years. So it was just crazy. And I moved from the South to New Jersey with my partner, who was living in New Jersey at the time. And I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? So I was doing some consulting. I do business consulting. That's kind of my strength over the years. I've just been brought in to work with different companies, launch new projects, new builds, concepts. And I was working with a client who was a chocolatier, and he was the first chocolatier I'd ever worked with. And I said, I know we're like doing some business side, but would you teach me to make chocolate? He taught me to make a sea salt caramel. That was the first thing I ever made. It's still the best seller that I have. And it's what I won this contest that I'm judging tomorrow. It was the very first thing I won with. So that was I've been Vivere it's our 10th year. This is celebrating our 10th year of Vivere. It started just by chance, and here we are.
I love how Brownen said that we kind of all get into culinary unexpectedly. Like a lot of people, especially pastry, kind of don't like plan to jump into it. Especially like Robert, similar to you, I went to school for theater and I was a waitress. And then I don't even know how I got into pastry whatsoever. I think I just started baking as a hobby and then I got good at it and I started like, everyone is just like, it just happened and then like you get good at it and now here we are. So I love that similarity. But I also like another similarity we have is we have queerness that shows up in our workspaces. We're all very out and proud and we have conversations on our socials and on our websites. So do you think, did you have any of those obstacles being out in the workplace? Was there kind of like a learning lesson? How was your career trajectory impacted?
For me personally, it's been a journey because I didn't come out until I was in my early 30s. So for the first half of my career, I was closeted or, still thinking and searching out my identity. And then when I did eventually come out, I was working here in New Orleans. So I was, in the deep South. And it's been a learning curve to figure out. At first, it felt like my personal life should remain private. And I was pretty reticent to talk about it openly at work. But because of like the whole host of, regressive laws that are being either put into place or, currently winding way through our legislature, it has become increasingly clear to me that I need to be very vocal about my identity and I need to take up space, especially being in the Deep South as like a public facing business owner who's also gay. Because that is people who are still, the person that I used to be, who are still like searching it out and questioning my identity, really need to see people in leadership positions who are openly and proudly talking about who they are. Sorry, that got heavy.
It's a kind of a heavy loaded question, but I mean, it's just our existences are very radical and sometimes heavy, so that makes sense.
Well, and I mean, dovetailing with what Bronwyn said, like as a trans business owner, there are very few of us out there, to be honest. And there's not a lot of even like public facing trans people in any industry. So, like growing up, like I certainly didn't have, similar people to sort of look at and think, this is what my future could look like, or like, this is what kind of life I could have. And, I think it's, like I wish visibility wasn't as important, but in this moment in American life, it really is. And so, it's been very important to me, both personally and professionally, especially because I am, I am a fairly cis-passing trans person too. If I don't announce it, people won't know. So I try to be very open in my sort of public persona, both professionally and otherwise, about like I am a trans business owner, not just a business owner. And it's I've honestly we're lucky in that like Philadelphia is a pretty liberal place anyways, so I think like the resistance that might face in other places we've been spared more or less. So we have a very supportive community around the shop, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah, like we have like a big trans mural like painted on the side of the exterior of our building, and we've had no negative reaction to it. But at the same time, we know that it took that organization 3 years to find a building that was willing to have something like that. So like there's still, a ways to go, even in a more liberal city, but yeah, like right now it kind of it's just important to me to make the progress we can.
As a queer person of color, and growing up in the South, I dealt with being a intelligent, business, entrepreneurial, spirited Black person more than I did with being a business pastry chef queer person. Um, I was in a fairly heteronormative career. I was a horse trainer, so there's not a lot of openly, or at least at the time. So by the time that I became in the hospitality and the chef food space, I was quite comfortable. I've always been out, so I was always comfortable in my skin. I also deal with clientele in such a fashion that we don't have a storefront, so I don't deal with traffic or what I call casual encounters. I don't. You either are interacting with us because you're a referral client, or you are you've met me first. So by the time that I'm doing something business related, but I do, because I am sort of cocooned to some degree, I make it a point to be visible. I do a lot of these. I speak, I get out, I work with other pastry chefs of color as well as queer pastry chefs, so that and the first thing I talk about is taking up space. That is the very first thing. I said, you have a voice, you have a presence, take up space. And even if you're scared, even if you're a first gen, you are, I think the mural that, or the tapestry mural that we talk about, we are all important to the picture. And that is why I do it.
I love that all of you are utilizing your spaces of just kind of just being out there. It's like you already know what it is. You look at my Instagram, you look at my website, you look at my build, like you already know what it is. So like if you don't want to be around here, you don't want to be over here, totally fine. But don't act like, we're just being quiet in the shadows. One of my pet peeves is we get, especially like QFF, we get asked a lot of like what what kind of foods are queer? And they always end up talking about like pastry the most. And I've even had like folks ask me the secrets to like a rainbow cake, and as infuriating as it is, it's kind of one of those moments where it reminds me that like we are existing in these spaces to show folks that we're queer, therefore our food is queer, and it shows up in many different ways. And that's what makes it queer food in general. So let's have a little fun. I want to show people your work because pastry is very much a visual art form. Um, a little confession on my end, Bronwyn. I guess Nima too. I don't like cake. It is. I can make cake. I can decorate cake. But if someone asks me, I will absolutely refer you to someone else because it is the last thing I want to do. And people like you are special gems in my heart that have the capacity to deal with cake because it has beaten me down. So I'm going to share some of your talent and I'll let you guys kind of talk about it a little bit. And I think I have Nima's first. So let me get a second. I'll show you guys what's going on. Okay, Nima, when you're ready.
Yeah, here we have a few pictures of myself and my business partner, Lily Fisher. She and I were best friends from our freshman year of college, and this was a journey that we never really imagined taking together, but we're so grateful for it. And so, yeah, Cake Life is, you know, a product of our collaboration. And we started out, like you might see in that picture on the left, this all kind of like that collaboration bizarrely started with Cupcake Wars. So Lily had gone on in a previous iteration, gone on one, got invited to a Champions episode. By then, I was graduating from pastry school, and she was like, "You know what? What about you doing it?" So that picture you saw that day of production was actually only our third time ever baking together. So quite a way to make a national televised debut. But yeah, we have a ton of kind of things that reflect whether it's our queerness or our politics in one way or another. We love working with things like our cookie, our pride cookie, our cupcakes on the left there. We also have, you'll see, second from left, that's our petal pistachio cookie, which is one of the items that I think kind of reflects my Persian heritage, maybe more than some of the other things in the shop. We also do a lot of fundraisers and awareness raisers for issues around women's reproductive health. So that's sort of where that floral cake there came from. That was a fundraiser for Planned Parenthood. Yeah. And then, our big claim to fame at Cake Life is that we have had the honor of baking for Beyonce's birthday twice. We have baked for her 3 times altogether, but 2 birthdays. And so this gives a little selection. She has actually received our most expensive cake and our least expensive cake for 2 separate birthdays. And so we're really kind of honored by that. And the most expensive one was the one on the top right there, which we modeled after her Grammy dress. And that one we're incredibly proud of. We love how it turned out, and it was very well received. But what means the most to me is the one that she's holding in that picture, which is our funfetti cake. We have that every day. You can just walk in and say, please write, happy birthday, Vanessa, on it, and you can walk out of the shop with that. And it's exactly the same way Beyonce enjoyed it. But yeah.
I just want to say, because I have friends that are in here, that this makes me sick because she is my favorite person in the world. And there's not a day, if you guys already follow me on Instagram, you already know, I don't spend a day not talking about her. My Instagram is for her. So this is, I now have multiple 1 degrees of separation to her, and now you're another one. So thank you for that.
Sorry,
I don't even know what I would do. I would say no. If she asked me to make this, I would say absolutely no. I couldn't even, no, I wouldn't do it.
I often tell Lily, my business partner, I'm like, you must have lit the right candle that day, because, I feel like she manifested this for years, because people would ask her, they'd be like, what's your dream with this business? And she would always say without fail to bake for Beyonce.
I say the opposite, because I don't think I would I wouldn't even be able to wait. I'm like, I'm asleep. No, I can't do it. So good for you guys. Okay, Bronwyn, please share us your skills, these gorgeous, gorgeous cakes.
Thank you. So the motif that I work with most often is working with fresh fruits, flowers, and vegetables for decoration. So things tend to be very scaled back and minimalist, except for these explosions of natural objects. I've really enjoyed partnering with farmers over the years to get almost everything locally. And so, I've developed really strong relationships with our local flower farmers who, I order whatever they have that week. They send me buckets of all the edible flowers that they're growing that particular day. And that's what I use on the cakes. I feel really grateful that my clientele has been super flexible and open to the idea that sometimes of year we might have dahlias and sometimes of year we might have marigolds, and that's just the way that our climate works here in New Orleans, and you get what you get. And it's been really rewarding too to kind of truly flow with the seasons. So not only are the cakes containing seasonal ingredients, seasonal fruit, but they're also being topped by highly seasonal flowers. Oh yeah, this was a very proud moment for me. I got to make a cake for Queen Frida, and she called me the cake queen, and I'm never going to probably get a better compliment than that from her. But yeah, and then I think one of my signatures, one of the things that I'm best known for is in this cake here, you can see there's the squiggle pattern, and that's just a playful design element that I kind of did on the fly that had some legs, and now you can see like a lot of people paying tribute to that. So that's been a really wonderful thing too.
I feel like Queen Frida is like, this is like top NOLA like honor, like hierarchy of NOLA, like queerness. This is it. So that's really awesome.
It was really fun. She's incredible. And you know, there's that other 6 degrees of separation from Beyonce too.
Yes, love it. Love it.
There we are. Well, in the first pic, I mean, you can see my logo. That's my partner, Ben. We are celebrating 15 years. That was a foodie trip to Germany. It's always a foodie trip when we go places. In the photos that we have, actually, the gentleman and I on the right, that is the contest that I am judging tomorrow. That was the very first time I competed, and I won. So I was kind of like, that was my first chocolate contest, and I thought, you know, there were all these pastry chefs, and it was me and my aunt. And I was like, I didn't have any sous chefs. It was just me and her. And so to win that contest amongst I think there was 15 different pastry chefs there. That was an honor. Cup, picture in the corner. It was just an impromptu cake treat. It was during the pandemic. And I said, I have blueberries, I have chocolate, I have whipped cream, and here we are. The bottom picture is my signature gold dusted sea salt caramel, and that is the very first product I made. It's still my most popular. So yeah. So notable moments. To me, because we do such specialty gifts, there weren't a lot of things I could show, but this one was important because we did the Oscar voting box for Judas and the Black Messiah. So that was with one of my clients who they were sending out, when they sent out the trailer, the viewer, and wanting people to look at voting for the Oscars, they had chocolate and wine and mine. And I do that a lot. A lot of my major work is for corporate clients wanting special gifts to their either best employees or best clients. They're doing some sort of an event. So yeah, getting to work with that. I think Netflix, we did a huge event with them for one of their honorees. So yeah, it's kind of what we do.
I love watching and seeing everyone's different art styles. It's one of my favorite things about like nerding out with pastry is that everyone has a style. Like you can tell even who was it? I was talking to Paula a couple was it, like literally a couple days ago, and I was just doom scrolling on Instagram and I saw this bread and it was it like Plantano bread, and the first thing in my head I was like, that's something Paula would do. And then I kept scrolling and it was her bread. And that was just, you know, it's just something you see as you grow into the community that you kind of just recognize key things that we culturally and even as individuals kind of put together as like our signatures. You know what I mean? My favorite is ice cream. My favorite food is ice cream. I have 3 ice cream tattoos and I love ice cream. I don't think there's even a day that I don't have ice cream. It feels very weird. But speaking of which, because I don't end a day without ice cream, I don't think ice cream or desserts are optional. And I feel like in the food industry, there's kind of this like underappreciation in dining spaces that pastry is an afterthought or like an option. Or like, you know, when you're going to a restaurant, they're like, do you want dessert? And people say no. It feels weird to me because how did you finish your meal without a dessert? Like when you do course meals, there's always a dessert. And do you think, like, have you had that type of experience of like an acceptance of your craft? Do you think that dessert is like a guilty pleasure, which I really hate that word in that sense as well?
Um, I've definitely had this experience, and I think for a lot of, my fellow colleagues who once were hired at restaurants and worked within restaurant groups, the pandemic really proved how thin our kind of grasp to the industry was. Because throughout, in so many cities, when the pandemic hit, pastry departments were the first to get cut as far as like hiring and staffing. So I lost my entire staff overnight during COVID and was holding down the fort by myself until I was also laid off, which is actually what ended up having me like start my business. So it was like a blessing in disguise. I'm like really grateful for that trajectory. But yeah, and I think even to this day, as we are continuing to experience the pandemic and recover from it, like economically, you see so many restaurants are now still having their pastries being done in-house by line cooks and people without a lot of experience. So many panna cottas, so many kind of mid panna cottas at every restaurant you go to. And I think that really does like show like how disposable we are in a lot of ways. But at the same time, all of my like friends across the country who have used that moment to start their own small businesses and to see how well folks have done with those have shown it proves that there is a public appetite for like really finely well-crafted desserts.
Yeah, I'm very much on the same page. Like when honestly, I skip dessert if I see panna cotta and pâte de crème and like, you know, like if that's where you're
Molten lava cake.
exactly like if it's that and the crème brulee, like that's nice, but like I'm out. Like I would rather go somewhere else and for dessert or but I would rather have fruit, honestly. But like I find like part of what I've noticed too is that like there's a dissonance for people where they're happy to pay that $12 for that panna cotta, but then they will complain that like your artisanally made like pastry or whatever costs $5 or $6. And it's like, I don't totally understand why there is an expectation, I find, that at least in a bakery setting, that things are just going to be real cheap because it's a bakery, and I'm like, that's fine if you're like a high volume factory sort of thing. But when you are a craft producer, an artisanal maker, like you are putting your heart and soul into that item the same way somebody is putting into that expensive steak at a restaurant or something like that, and like whatever platter they're making. And these preparations take time, they take care, they take skill to execute properly, and like that's what I'm serving. And so I'm always like, look, like I'm never going to be the cheapest place in town. That's not my goal. My goal is to be the best. And like I want to make every experience someone has with our shop something that's special and remarkable to them, and where they really feel like they got something that they couldn't just get anywhere else. um so yeah, like the value I think comes for at least for me from the quality both of the item and the experience. But yeah, like it can be like I have had times that people have wanted to haggle with prices, and they'll bring in like the grocery store as like their counter. And honestly, I'm kind of like, if that's what you if that's the price point you want, that's where you're gonna get it. Like more power to you. Please, by all means, like go to Acme and get that, you know, thing, but not from me. Mine will be better, but hey.
For me, it has not. I have not had a real issue, mainly, and again, I think it's just where the space that I occupy, because I feel like if I dealt, so we only make a distinction about our business is that we only make things that are already ordered. So we don't have waste, and there's nothing for someone to. I always go like the tire kickers that come by and they can appreciate your stuff, and then they don't want to pay for it. Yeah, no, because I see that happening. I see it happening in a lot of my colleagues, and I think I'm not sure how I would do that or how I would handle that if I entered. I really do believe if I had entered the space as a chef before entering it as a business owner, I might have a different feeling about it, or at least be a little more sensitive to. But I'm kind of like, people always ask, what do you like? And that's the number one thing. I try to not say that I don't eat chocolate a lot. You don't, I guess I've said it now. I like the artistry, but as far as it's a medium at this point. We use it, we see it every day. When you see a ton of chocolate, a literal ton of chocolate on your doorstep, it's overwhelming. So no, but I do know that it is a real phenomena amongst the industry that, yeah, we tend to be an afterthought. So I try to make every encounter I have be very purposeful, and so that, yeah, you know what you're getting, and you're gonna pay for it. But it's gonna be good.
You're gonna pay for it is the key word of the key phrase of the day. So you're gonna pay for it. I remember I had someone ask me to make those, like those really complicated sugar cookies that take you like 20 minutes a cookie to make. And I don't remember what I was charging, but I wasn't charging what she wanted. And she was like, well, I found someone on Etsy that charges $2 a cookie. And I was like, well, it sounds like you found the person to make your cookies. Like, I'm not a price match Walmart. So I hear that a lot often too, of people just kind of price comparing. And also to your point, Bronwyn, and I always ask if you have an in-house pastry chef, especially if you're a high-level restaurant. The fact that you're not paying a salary for a pastry chef, just even culturally as a food industry, bothers me, just because that shows the lack of value that you have in a very specific in like art form of food that is one of, I mean, my favorite. I'm also very biased, clearly. But it just in general, it just kind of like it puts a lot of heaviness on the savory when we are here very clearly professionals, very invested in our trade and craft. And so usually pastry chefs, like when they have to make cuts, I feel like pastry chefs are the first people to get cut. And that always really bothers me, because then like you're making panna cottas and apple pie a la modes in these 3-star restaurants. So with that, okay, so that's my point. I choose pastry over savory at all times. Even when I was going to school, I wanted to do pastry. If I usually have dessert for dinner, if I have an option, I'm gonna have dessert for dinner. Clearly I have a problem, it's fine. But people ask me all the time, like, why did you choose pastry over savory? And my answer is always joy. Like you cannot go into an ice cream shop. You typically cannot go into an ice cream shop with an attitude. This bakeries and cakes are celebration, they're desserts, they're joy, they're happiness. And so no matter the occasion, you're bringing someone joy. And that's what I love about being in this craft. And so why do you think you chose this medium over others?
I think for me, it was a natural progression of what I was already interested in. So when I was an undergrad and in grad school, I studied English and printmaking. And so I was really used to kind of approaching things in an analytical way. And printmaking, while it is like an art, it's very creative, it's also probably the most technical of the disciplines. And so I think having that technical element and having the sort of analytical element, needing to use those tools to produce a good baked good, because there is, the element of like science and chemistry. I found that kind of a little bit more, I'm going to maybe piss off savory cooks, but I think I found a little more intellectually vigorous than just savory cooking. And I've done both, and I love both, but I will always find baking and pastry to be more engaging.
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, I feel similarly. Like, I think there's something about the precision of pastry and you know, like the spatial problem solving that I find very appealing personally. But in kind of a bigger picture way, I mean, I often say at the shop that we specialize in emotional eating. And it's kind of true. It's like, people punctuate their lives with pastry, whether it's, a happy moment or a sad one. Like people are often marking these milestones, like big and small, like whether it's like, oh, like I had a bad day, I want that cookie I love, or whatever. Like people are often marking moments with pastries in a way that they just don't with savory cooking, and it resonates differently, or at least they don't as much with savory cooking. Like I often say, when we deliver a wedding cake, I feel kind of bad for the caterers because they could put their heart and soul into that menu. Nobody will remember the salad, and everyone will remember the cake. you know but yeah, that's
Yeah. For me, it was no one's ever said to see you show up with chocolate. And even if they don't like chocolate, they know someone who does. So it's an easier medium for me because it's so portable, and I can prep it ahead of time. Now, the same thing is also a problem because there are a lot of things that we make, like the truffles that we take. It's 2 days to make that truffle, and it's going to always be 2 days to make that truffle. So it might look like a little ball sitting on a table, but we know what the artistry and craftsmanship that went into that. And kind of tying in both the question about how the perception of pastry as well as why I choose it. I have a fantasy passion project that is called Aperitif, and it's only desserts and it's only spirits because of the very things we've said here, where people will celebrate their moments with pastry. They come and I would. Can you imagine an eatery or a restaurant where each table more or less has something, whether it be a great day at work or a birthday or a date or just an after close a new deal at, all of those things. If you have a place where it's not a competition between the savory and sweet, you can go to all the savory places you go to. You come here for the treats. And so that's one of those things I want to do, like kind of have a bar, a cocktail bar / pastry bar if I were to do something. So that's kind of why I choose it, just because it always puts a smile on your face.
Nima, you really hit it on the head when you said emotional eating, because I am one of those people that if I'm bored or hyper insomniac, I will stay up and make beignets until 5 in the morning and take a bite and go to bed. And it's just because there's flour and sugar and yeast in the house. And it's, if I've got those 3 ingredients, you can pretty much make a lot of things. And so it's also soothing though. Like, you just have a process. It's very, because of the precision and because of the kind of technical mindset, it is very soothing and kind of comforting to kind of just have that step by step and just have something else to focus on. I think it's also therapeutic in that way, that you really have to focus on what you're doing, especially because you're making something from nothing. Very, that's very precise chemistry for sure. For folks, I would love for you guys to put questions in. We're gonna get into our Q&A in a moment. So if you want to put your questions in, please do so. I already have one, so we can get started. What has been the most rewarding part of your pastry career and journey?
I mean, I can jump in. For me, it's like a lot of it is just, and it dovetails on the last question too. It's like being part of an emotional journey with people, right? And like it's amazing. I'll betray my age a little bit, but we've now had the shop for long enough that we've had things happen. Like we've had people have their first dates in the shop and then get their wedding cake from us and then get the first kid's birthday cake from us and then get, like we've like had the honor of being part of people's journeys, even when we haven't been super aware of it. And they'll tell us at a certain point, they'll be like, by the way, we did this and that. And like, there's something just like, yeah, like it's, it's a special thing to have an opportunity to sort of like be a touch point in people's lives.
Yeah. For me, it's the joy. It is the joy because I think you mentioned earlier in the call about, you're doom scrolling. And I said, I thought about it. I want to be that bright spot for someone. I want to be, no matter what's going on, that moment they tasted it, that moment they came in, they came seeking joy and they found our place. To me, that's what it's about. And that's what keeps me going, because it's easy to, I always say, look down and see all the negative. So in this moment where something as simple as being able to combine something you're passionate about with something that's important to you, I think those things, that's what keeps me going. The smiles on the faces, it means a lot.
Okay, the questions are rolling in, which I love. So, everyone, I love you for all the work you do, but what keeps you going in the industry? And this is coming from Kareem Queeman, Mr. Bake himself. So,
this feels like a big question for me, because I just announced today that I'm going to be closing like the baking part of my business in favor of doing more writing and recipe development. I think that I've loved being an active chef and being part of this industry for so long, and a lot of it has been about, like, again, that sort of intellectual engagement and feeling like interested and like passionate about the work. And I think, like a lot of people with ADHD, like the second that the passion starts to wane, like it is so difficult for me to continue being interested and engaged with the work that I'm doing. It's like an instant sign to me that I need to move on and find a new challenge. So for me, like, I think if anyone is wondering like how to continue to have a passion to work in this industry, which is so hard on our bodies and not terribly lucrative most of the time, it's really just about finding like avenues of work that are really challenging and keep you engaged.
Yeah, I mean, we have we've progressed in a way that is, it has brought me challenges I didn't expect. Like the first day that we opened the shop, I remember just like looking at Lily and I was like I know this wasn't what we had planned, but like I was like, I have an office job now. you know, and I kind of did like, and so like we went from like the two of us doing everything from washing dishes to making fancy cakes to, right, sending all the emails to like suddenly having a bigger operation where, we needed to like essentially like learn how to run a business. And so that has really been, like my trajectory now. Lily is still doing our specialty baking. She makes like beautiful custom cakes that work, and I in turn run the business. And so it's been really interesting to, like I love learning, and if I'm not learning, I'm bored. And so there's been a lot there for me to kind of sink my teeth into, and really like it's been helpful to come from the kitchen into that in a lot of ways. And certainly difficult to have not come from a business education into that. And so, there have been certain things where I've been stronger and other things where I've needed development. But yeah, it's just been that challenge, has me hooked, and just getting more involved in the small business community too, like through board work and stuff like that. Like I feel like, we are now finally in a position. Everyone kept saying like, you need to work on the business, not just at the business. Right. And so like really the last year and a half has been the first time that we've officially that we have made room for me to be the person who does that. So that's been exciting. And I've just been trying to like learn as much as I can and how to leverage that for the betterment of the business and everybody who works there too. And who, like how can we make the most of the scrappy little thing that we've got? Yeah.
Nice. A lot of the work that I do with other businesses and pastry chefs is just that, is helping people make that transition from the kitchen to the office. I started in the office and tried to make the transition to the kitchen, and my team said, go back to the office. But I do make well chocolate, but I do know that for the efficiency and productivity of my business, letting my team do what they do is the best thing. And also knowing that when we get up, the success of the business is what's going to create that visibility. We love great food. We love, but I need, I'm a fan, I'm a business junkie. So to me, seeing a well-run business is what I enjoy. So it is a passion project for me to make sure other pastry chefs and or just chefs in general in the food space that are trying to do something have the working on the business side, because there's some amazing chefs out there. We even on our panel is full of them, but we need the technical side or the business side to make sure that both were compensated, that there is representation, and that our voices, both either whether queer or POC, whatever, happens to be heard at that intersection of we're a business person, we're an artisan, we're chef, we're queer, and we're here. But that is the thing. I want visibility is important just in and of itself.
I think, you know, when people start a business, you know, like Cupcakes by Carrie, they want to do the creative side, but as an entrepreneur, there is a very, very hefty business side. And if you don't learn it quick, you can get swept up really easily. And it doesn't become fun anymore. Like you're saying, Bronwyn, like if you really have to kind of even balance out. I feel like sometimes it's even like 25% doing the pastry work and like 75% business. And I think like that's something that I have to remind myself of too, is like you kind of actually have to be a business person, like sit down, like I have to do taxes, I have to price things out, I have to answer emails, you know, to be able to still do this craft that you love to do. Okay, so we've got a few short questions. I kind of want to do kind of like a rapid fire, kind of like everyone kind of gives like one or two words. And then I have like kind of like one big final question, if that's okay. So we'll knock this out, which is really fun. Who is an inspiring person in the industry to you right now?
Camilla Wynn, Toronto-based gem maker, teacher, and writer.
Yeah, I mean, all time, I would say Edna Lewis, but like current, I mean, there's too many. There's so many good makers. I'm sticking with Edna.
Yeah, there are two for me. It's for many different reasons. So I like to see us all win. So I'm excited about so many different professionals and so many different chefs that are doing great things. So I'm like, you know what, any given one of them amazing. So I draw inspiration from everybody.
Okay, what is your bestseller that keeps people coming back?
I think my carrot cake, probably.
For us, like cupcakes in general, like really like, pull people in. But I think like a single item that, is sort of outside of the norm for us that's been really successful is we do like an elevated Nanaimo bar, which is like a Canadian classic that is like, as a Canadian too, I feel comfortable saying they're not usually that good, even though Canadians love them. So, we really wanted to make one that we thought was fantastic, and we feel like we sort of achieved that. But yeah, that's one that people can't pronounce it, but they come back for it.
For us, it's actually, well, the sea salt caramel is what I like to make the most, and a lot of people buy. Our biggest, I would say, our biggest attention grabber. We do a custom chocolate bar series for people who say you are a wine connoisseur or a spirits connoisseur. We will actually put together a custom flavored bar collection. And so that process, people really enjoy the tasting of the different chocolates and their origins, the inclusions, and we will create a one-of-a-kind recipe just for you.
Nima, you really struck a nerve there when you talked about Canadian desserts, because I lived in Canada for like 2 years, and I did a series of trying Canadian desserts and candy bars, and it was an experience. It was an experience. The arrows never made sense to me. They still don't. There's just so much going on up there.
Canadian candy bars and potato chips are generally pretty
so good. Interesting choices. Except the ketchup chips. Do you like ketchup chips? So do you currently have any queer employees in your spaces? Are you working with other folks?
I don't have any employees.
I mean, my team right now has about 17 or 18 people. I would guess out of just like probably at least 10 to 12 queer identify in one way or
Everybody in my business is either queer or POC. It's an entire, I mean, it's just one, they'll check one of those boxes.
So, some hot topics. Are there any old or outdated pastry trends or techniques you'd like to see revived or go away?
No, so sorry. For
Okay,
me,
fine.
no, because I believe that desserts are make what you like, make what your client likes. So there are plenty of things that we do very, very well that I would never eat because I'm not the client. So I don't. I try to not get caught up. I try to not put my personal, because that was one of the first things I met when I first got into the industry. There were a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, yeah, I only make this because I like it." That's kind of limited. If I only made what I like, so.
I'm on a one-woman mission to bring fruitcake back and make it hip again. It's been slow progress, but I have hope.
I love a good food thing. Yeah, the um I would love to see chocolate and orange become like not dated again. Like having that become like it's they're so good together, but they feel very dated.
My favorite flavors of anything is mint, and I know it's very controversial, but I love mint in anything, peppermint, spearmint, whatever mint. I love mint, and so I would really love for mint to get the love that it deserves in pastry spaces. Okay, last question. For those who want to get into baking, into this field, what are some tips or even some starter pastries to get them going?
If you want to get into baking as a career, I think my top piece of advice is to try working in a bakery before going to culinary school. I think a lot of people find that I didn't go to culinary school, but I've heard that a lot of people found the experience of going to culinary school to be very different from what it's actually like working in a restaurant. And so I think it's really important to try it first to see if you like it before investing in your career. And if you love it, great, like, move on there. But yeah, that would be my number one piece of advice.
I think that's great advice. And I would just follow that with saying, like, if you try it and you think you have a taste for the actual work of it, at least for me at Cake Life, I'm like, then please go to pastry school. Like, take your taste of it and then go educate yourself. Because, and also recognize that something like pastry school, as much as it's a sacrifice and it's an investment. It's like going to boot camp in the military, right? Where it's like you're not a general just because you finished boot camp. Like you're just at the beginning of your journey, right? And it's like, all it does is like you will at least have recognized what a handful of pastry things are, and you will have made them at least once. And like that's about how deep pastry school gets. So it's not going to make anyone an expert at anything, but it's going to teach you the language and it's going to teach you the skill set that then can allow you to really like grow kind of exponentially in the right environment after.
I always tell people to know their why. Know your why, because it will dictate the trajectory. Because sometimes, like like technically, when I go teach at the culinary schools, I'm generally only talking about the business side, and so I see people, and I remind them that just because you want to be a pastry chef does not mean you need to open a shop. You don't. That doesn't automatically mean open a bakery. There are plenty of us that need skilled artisans. So don't feel the pressure, because I saw a wave of around 10 years ago in the chocolate industry where everyone was coming out and everyone, I need to open a chocolate shop. And I'm like, do you? But there are plenty of shops that need skilled artisans. So don't feel the pressure of, oh, I must start something separate now that I've gotten this degree or I've expended this. I think sometimes when they expend the money, and we don't see the salaries and the pastry chef roles, it's like, well, I guess I should start a bakery. And I don't think, I want to see that trend change. I want you to feel differently.
When I first started before I went to culinary school, I did this small project in the summer. I did 100 cupcakes in 100 days. And then the next year I did 100 cheesecakes in 100 days. I was like, if I can do this that long, then I can go to school because I like it that much. And that was something like I wanted to challenge myself to make sure, like, before I invest in this, do I like it this much? You know, like it is something that you're going to do over and over again. So I always recommend just getting into it and doing it a lot so you can feel good. But I think that's the end of our seminar. I loved all these questions, all these tips and tricks. Thank you to my amazing panelists for coming. Please, folks, be sure to follow them. You can follow Brownen on Bayou Saint Cake. You can follow Nima at Cake Life Bake Shop, cakelifebakeshop.com. And Robert, where can they find you?
Find Chocolate Man at Instagram.
Love that. I wanted you to say it. And then please follow QFF. Look at our website. Check us out. We're doing fundraising to keep these amazing programs going. So please check us out on our social media to kind of keep us going and to keep supporting these amazing things together. Follow us. If you come back in June, we'll be doing a JBF Chefs panel. So really excited for that. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.